10,000 Christopher Bollyns requested. We need to carry on Bollyn's work. I fear that the freelance reporter Christopher Bollyn and his family may have become victims of the Zionist criminals who did 9/11. In any case, I wish to call upon all truth seekers who do not believe in the lies of our fraudocracy to become freelance reporters just like Christopher Bollyn. The world needs thousands of such people to replace what we have lost. We do not need any false opposition disinformationists like Mike Ruppert and Michael Collins Piper, who both claimed that the assassinated reporter Gary Webb, who broke the news about the Contras smuggling cocaine into the United States during the fraudocracy's fake war on drugs, committed suicide. I remember the Contra leader Adolfo Calero advising Gary Webb to take out a life insurance policy on a TV news program when asked about Webb's allegations that the Contras were smuggling cocaine into the United States. According to Mike Ruppert, both the DNC and the RNC and Wall Street were in on the drug smuggling racket, but then he said that you must not suggest that Webb did not commit suicide. This is how the false opposition works. They tell you the truth on things that you already know to be true in order to snooker you into believing bigger lies than the lies that they expose. Read Christopher Bollyn's website for more on Piper and Ruppert. One thing that neither Bollyn's website nor September 11th, the new Pearl Harbor adequately explains is how the buildings came down and why the Twin Towers were pulverized. Were the collapses cold events or hot events? Certainly, there was molten steel at the bottom of all three buildings after the collapses, and molten steel came pouring out of the floors, where the superthermite was planted in the Twin Towers. But WTC-7 was not pulverized as it came down, as were the Twin Towers. It was pulverized at ground level, however. The idea that the superthermite was painted onto the girders I believe to be disinformation. It was a setup for the fraudocrats to come back with proof that you cannot melt steel girders that way. No, but if you have tons of thermite inside of batteries on a floor, it would melt the entire floor by melting the lead in the batteries, if the thermite was ignited. As molten steel was found at the bottom of the WTC-7 and it came down from the bottom up, as in the typical controlled demolition, we can conclude that the superthermite was moved from the top of the building to the basement when the plane that was supposed to have hit WTC-7 was shot down in Shanksville. This is why the drone which was supposed to have taken its place did not show up. The Twin Towers, however, had the superthermite on the same floor where the batteries were placed, the floors which were targeted by the drones. It is these floors where all of the heat was located. The purpose of the thermite was not to bring down the buildings, although it certainly facilitated their collapse by the cutter charges. The purpose of the thermite, as Christopher Bollyn stated, was to destroy the evidence of the drones. Anyone who has ever played around with electronics knows that a wire of solder is very stiff and resists being compacted, although it can be bent. But if the hot soldering gun is pushed onto the end of a wire of solder, it will easily melt, offering no resistance whatsoever. This then is how the buildings were pulverized, as the floors containing the superthermite ignited by the dew-tipped missiles melted the floor containing the batteries. The floors melted every girder they came into direct contact with, floor by floor, as they fell. As was shown in September 11th, the new Pearl Harbor, the heat from the thermite was so intense that it actually melted the cement that it came in direct contact with, turning it into lava. Droplets of this lava, when sprayed into the air, would immediately cool and turn into the nanoparticles observed in the dust from the World Trade Center. A similar thing happens to lava which is sprayed from an erupting volcano. It is called pumice. We have plenty conspiracy theorists, most of them spouting out fraudocracy disinformation, but precious few conspiracy investigators like Christopher Bollyn. I plan to create 2 websites dedicated to help remedy this situation, fraudocracy.org and fraudocracy.com, with your help. Fraudocracy.org I plan to use as an open forum to recruit investigators. Fraudocracy.com I plan to use as a web publishing site to help support the forum and keep it online. The obstacles seem insurmountable. Christopher Bollyn has proven that 9/11 was a computer-generated electronic warfare crime. The history of the conspiracy goes all the way back to the Purloined Promise software, which was used as a backdoor to deep-six all of the drug smuggling crimes of the fraudocracy. That is what Waco and the Oklahoma City bombing were all about. And now these same criminals have access to everyone's online conversations through mobile devices, and the fraudulent Department of Homeland Security, which has been with the criminally run FBI covering up the escalating crimes of the fraudocracy. This is how tyranny develops. A necessary corollary to tyranny is mind control. As Christopher Bollyn has stated, Americans live in a concentration camp of the mind. Since 911, this concentration camp of the mind has been built by the Department of Homeland Security through its psyops. Make no mistake about it, this is a form of Zionist religious mind control. The first president of Israel and a major founder of the Zionist state, Chaim Weizmann, told the British government, "If you do not give us Israel, we will destroy the British Empire the way we destroyed the Russian Empire. Either you support Zionism or we will give you communism." That is why the Esteban Santiago crazy Hispanic shooting excuse for gun confiscation morphed under the DNC fraudocrats into the Islamic terrorist Ashok Hamd under the Republican fraudocrats. The FEMA concentration camps are waiting for Gentiles under a DNC fraudocracy and waiting for Jews under a RNC fraudocracy. Both the DNC fraudocrats and Republican fraudocrats stood to give the Israeli Prime Minister numerous standing ovations when he addressed the Congress. Yes, this is the same Israeli Prime Minister that Kuwaiti Foreign Minister says is both stupid and insane. And the same Israeli Prime Minister who, according to former National Security Agency employee Wayne Madsen, said that, after visiting American-Israeli spy and traitor Jonathan Pollard in his prison cell, was overheard to say, quote, "Once we squeeze all we can out of the United States, it can dry up and blow away." Unquote.